What's up, y'all? Welcome back once again. No Strings Podcast with Rel Simon. I thought the episode I did before about 9 to 5 was going to be my last this year, but I said, let me just do a 2023 recap. This will be somewhat short, off the cuff, random thoughts, reflection of 2023. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, iHeartRadio, brought to you by Spotify. And in the month of December, I've been able to meet some new people, but also network, share my podcast with people, have a couple additional people follow, and just busy moving and shaking. So if you are new to my podcast, if you're a first time listening, hello and welcome. I am a podcaster. Decided to do this 2 years ago when I paid off all my debt in March of 2021. Student loans, credit cards. I was deep in the hole. I tell a story all the time. And my episodes on here, now 40 episodes in, a majority are about personal finance, but you'll see that I've also got episodes from locations where I've been. So almost like an audio blog as well as this point. Audio excursions and reflections on my travels in between content. And in general, thinking about 2023, there's a lot of travel that occurred, preparing for a major trip in just under 60 days, which is coming up soon, from what is considered a trip of a lifetime. Also, at the same time, my friends growing around me, persons getting engaged or celebrating anniversaries, having children, having additional children, and also setbacks. So I wouldn't really say setback, but it's been 3 years in since the virus or the sickness, the pandemic, or whatever you will. And I definitely had a brush with that this year. This month, though, seems to be on the up and up, and just thankful to still be around and record, right? So, and it is No Strings Podcast, right? You want to live life, like I always say, with no strings, no emotional strings, no financial strings. We're all human. We've all got struggles and issues, but you just have to push through them. And when it comes to working on your finances, just as always, learning to be smart, learning to be money savvy, watching these dangers of these credit card traps, these interest rates, high mortgage rates, watching these subscriptions, trying to, if you picture your money as the water in a running faucet, and you're the controller that's controlling the knobs to hot and cold. Of course, you turn the knob one way and the water will keep running, and the water won't stop at all. It won't shut off automatically unless you may have like some type of electric system, or if you have a Bluetooth enabled faucet, which 99.7 of us don't have. But you've got to turn off that water, or else that water is going to keep running like a running faucet. And it's just like finances when you're making these impulse purchases and these impulse buys, not being focused. You got to just focus on that self-control. And this is timeless knowledge, guys and gals. This is not new knowledge. It may be new knowledge to you. Again, if you're just listening to me for the first time, I talk about it all the time, just finance. And always remember that personal finance is personal. Everyone's situation is always different. But what I'm going to do here in a second, though, is really look at all the episodes and just do a brief recap of all the episodes that I did this year. Uh, Definitely more episodes than I did in 2022. Obviously, more episodes than I did in 2021 because I was just getting started in 2021. But just being committed to the content, being able to take an hour or a couple hours out of the day um, to record, and depending on if I have notes for this particular episode, maybe I'll write an article and I'll go off the article. Maybe it's no article. I come off the cuff, or maybe it's just a recap of where I've been. But just the dedication, taking a Saturday or a Sunday out, a couple of hours, just remaining busy and just being able to provide this content. And one thing I've learned is that, of course, the numbers matter. The numbers are so important. The engagement, and I get all that. I did one of those 70s filters on TikTok just the other day, and it's got over 5,000 views. Now, TikTok is also made up of bots. So I know some of those are bots that view the video and trying to follow me. And it's all about the algorithm. But it was just an AI generated image, and they more or less plastered my face onto it. But I say that to make the comparison where whenever I promote my podcast, I'll get around 1,000 views, 900 to 1,000 views on TikTok. Versus that one little thing about AI generated face filter had over 5,000 views or impressions. And I mean, I can look at that from both sides. One is it's not really content. It's not really informative content. I'd wish one of my promo clips had that many views. And who's to say that in the future that I won't reach that? But you know how it is with social media. It's just fighting, shock content, twerking, chaos that really gets those immediate clicks and immediate views. It pushes the algorithm, but I ain't tripping off that. So once I do a short pause and come back, I'm going to run through each and every episode and just provide a brief recap over each episode that I've did this year. So I'll be back in a flash. All right, y'all. 2023 is in the books, and reflecting back, do some self-reflection, y'all. What was the best thing to happen to you in 2023, or what was the worst thing to happen to you in 2023? Did you learn something new? Did you meet new people? Always reflect on your year or even your day. Every day is a new day, so always reflect. So let's get into all these episodes. And I did my first episode this year titled New Year's Evolutions, Not Resolutions. And that particular episode was about not looking at this typical standard resolutions as to going to the gym, starting a gym membership, but also figuring out how do you evolve. And at the beginning of the year, I listed my evolutions, which is learn a new language, French, increase net worth through financial and network, giving, volunteering and charity, creativity, more paintings and podcasts, self-discipline, prayer, meditation, self-control. Learn a new language. I have been slipping on it because for the longest time, I kept telling myself that I wanted to learn French so that I can go to Paris in 2024. I think Paris may move to 2025 since Ghana has been like such a focus. I may do Ghana and just kind of just reload these finances, increase net worth through network. Yes, especially this month, just being able to meet new people and just really not being afraid to talk about my podcast in passing and have people follow. Financial, yes. There's my net worth, and I know that S&P 500 in the stock market over these past few weeks has jumped. There's a chance that it may dip sometime in 2024 during November or the wintertime during the election season. But where it stands right now, I'm happy that I was able to meet a goal through to investing in my retirement accounts, funding my different retirement accounts and other investment vehicles. Giving, volunteering, and charity. I mean, I've given financially. Volunteering, I have offered my time in more ways in the church. So I'd say that's a 50-50 yes in a sense. Creativity, more paintings and podcasts. Podcasts definitely. I've been grinding them out. Paintings, haven't really done a solo piece this year. We'll see if that changes in 2024. Again, I mean, it's just like riding a bike. I'm confident that I'll get back into it. Self-discipline, prayer, meditation, self-control. Those are three things I'm still working on, just learning how to be in the moment. I know I'm more passive. I try not to, if I get an emotional response in my body, I try not to show it outwardly. I'm learning to pick up on cues and just learn how to read people, read myself. And for me, I'm just moving in my own space. And that's sometimes all you have to do because you're all you got. So that was the first episode I did. The second episode that I did in 2023 was what the Popeyes chicken sandwich taught us about finances. And that more or less was pretty much, in a nutshell, how we're willing to fight over a $5 sandwich, which, by the way, has 2 grams of trans fats, and trans fats are actually bad for you. But the sandwich is so good. People love the sandwich, like the sandwich. It was just a window dressing of the bigger commentary at hand involving proper financial and human decision making. If you're fighting over a $5 sandwich, why are you not putting that same energy towards saving $5? Making sure you have $5 in your emergency, $5 in your emergency account, $5 invested. No strings at the movie theater. And this one, according to Spotify, was my most engaged episode or listened to episode this year. No strings at the movie theater. Just talking about how movie ticket prices have increased, and a night out can turn into a $100 excursion plus more, depending on how many people you're with. If you're just with one companion or if you're with family, the price of a bucket of popcorn or combo meals is egregious, insane. Just learn how to save when you're at the movies. No strings with the cost of living single was another episode I did, talking about there was an article I saw regarding like a singles tax, where essentially you're paying more by living alone because you're the only one with an income, and you may have dependents in your house, versus if you're living in a situation with a roommate, or if you're living in a housing situation, or if you're living with a spouse, you're splitting bills. But when you're doing it all by yourself, you're the only one that faces the burden, and it's a no-brainer. You have to adjust accordingly, but some people don't. That's how people end up in debt. No strings when you retire, part 1. This one was interesting because I watched the CBS Evening News video about a Caucasian woman who is in her 60s, still juggling a few jobs, and does not have much saved for retirement. And that's one thing I want to stress out of everything, is that a lot of people in my age group, some people are a few years older than me, 10 years older than me, people who listen, some are younger than me. And it's just important that you got to save and save and save and think about your future self for retirement, because you don't want to end up physically unable to work with no money at all. No strings with SNAP and EBT, aka food stamps. This was early in the year, around winter to spring, where SNAP and EBT benefits were starting to decrease, and people would be affected by that. And that was planned to be decreased for Americans around October 1st of this year. And it's just so hard. Like it's hard when you're a mother of 4. You need assistance from the government, because you may not have enough money to pay for basic needs such as groceries. But the government is so strapped. The government's $4 or $5 trillion in debt. The government can't even pay their own bills, and it's just hard. You got to supplement and be able to take care of yourself with your own income. But if you're not making enough money with this inflation, your hands are tied behind your back, and it's sad. The 2-5 was my 25th episode, just reflecting about how far I've gone, 25 episodes in the books, and look at it now. I'm at 40 episodes. And I think I told myself a while back I'll buy myself a cake when I reach episode 50. Maybe I'll go somewhere. Who knows? No strings with credit cards. I was bullish on credit cards 2017 through 2021 because they are dangerous. I was $24,000 in credit card debt. Tell the story all the time. Because a lot of y'all out here, $500, $1,000. No, it's not until you really get in the weeds and you hear that someone was 24 grand in credit card debt. And some people, I just had a conversation with someone about this last night at a Sip and Paint party that I was summoned to lead out in Columbia, Maryland. And some people don't know how to get out of that, can't get out of that, don't have the will to get out of that. I'm glad that I was able to, through faith, through hard work, through research, through self-discipline, to be able to get out of that. And now I'm even on the flip side of the credit cards. I talked about how I opened the Chase Sapphire Preferred, and I'm trying to see if I can bank enough points to get some free flights to Paris for that eventual trip. And I everything is flipped on its head. But because I'm in that particular advantage now, where it's not necessarily a liability to me, and I'm not paying off debt. It's just an advantage. It's almost like a game of sorts for me. But again, personal finance is personal. Don't take my word for it, and don't try to mimic what I try to do. Yes, especially don't mimic getting into credit card debt. Don't do that. It's a deep credit card debt. You definitely don't want to do that. Not at all. No Strings in Kentucky and Indiana. So this is like travel blog. Went to a graduation out of Kentucky State. Had a great time. Never been to Kentucky. Saw some AEW wrestlers on my layover flight. Something different. Even got this cross state lines into Indiana briefly, and that's just an example of, okay, if I'm traveling, I'm going to make an episode out of it. And that was a great time. Now, I remember, so that was May 15th, that sort of weekend, May 14, 13, 14, 15, 12, 13, 14, when I went to Kentucky. And the following episode was No Strings in New Orleans, when I went to the young adult retreat in New Orleans, Memorial Day weekend this year. It was great. Bourbon Street was out of control. Our hotel was on Canal Street. We were 3 blocks away from Bourbon Street. It was crazy. But also on the flip side, being able to worship with people around my age group, being able to interview the young adult president, Tiffany Thompson. Shout out to Tiffany Thompson. And it was a great story. Being able to go back to check out a Cafe Du Monde and get some beignets and coffee. I regret not hitting up the traditional spots, the eateries. There just wasn't enough time to really engage in like a traditional sit down restaurant. So that I do regret that, but it is what it is. Financial regrets and the idea of failure. That episode was about financial mistakes that I've made in the past. The back half of the episode was about failure. Giannis Antetokounmpo's speech about failure when he got eliminated from the playoffs, the 2023 playoffs back in April. I didn't record the episode until June 18th, but that was back in April, and I just tied everything together pretty well. And also shout out to Canva. I definitely thank Canva for being able to provide free resources and tools. I've been able to make a bunch of my podcast, covers or promotion covers or posts, thanks in part to Canva, TikTok, CapCut. and just being able to play around with the elements and everything. So after the episode, I did an Apple a day, talking about the behemoth that is Apple, all their products, upcoming products, their market share, their value, how they have entrenched themselves in millions of households, mine included. FUST, F-U-S-T. This episode was my acronym stage, but FUST, food, utilities, shelter, transportation. Those are the bare necessities that you need. I recommend you go back and listen to that episode. But again, the bare necessities, just remember FUST, F-U-S-T, food, utilities, shelter, transportation. You need those things at bare minimum before you try to pay off debt or save money. You need to make sure all your bases are covered. And definitely an inspiration from Dave Ramsey. He talks about the four walls. My second acronym episode shortly after FUST was TIME, T-I-M-E, 8 Keys for Life, discussing literal time, trusting the one you have faith in, intelligence, investing, money, making a difference, everyone you love, enjoyment, 8 solid pillars to pay attention to throughout your life. So that episode TIME, with what I believe is the sickest Canva graphic I did, I guess. After TIME was Don't Forget to Tip, talking about tipping culture, how insane it is. Service charges and additional surcharges can be added on to final bills at certain restaurants before you even add a tip. What's the best tip amount? So that's what that episode was about. Don't forget to tip. Budgeting is hard, right? That episode was about budgeting, how to budget, pulling up some different scenarios about budgeting, and some tricks as to what I particularly do when I budget. Frugal was all about being frugal. It's not cheap, it's not poor. It's learning how to be, in a sense, thrifty, not be so high maintenance, learning how to spend wisely on things, make things last. But it's not extreme cheapstakes. It's not being thrifty, being at the dollar store all the time or anything like that. So that was a pretty good episode. Frugal. October 14th, my episode was No Strings at New York Comic Con 2023. I went to New York Comic Con October 12th, 2023 on a Thursday. It was a great time. Saw some dope artists, panels. I bought some art. Got to take a picture with the legendary wrestler Ted DiBiase. A day trip. Got up around 5-ish. Got to New York around 10. Left around 9. Got back in DC around like 1 a.m. Went back to work the next day. Got to see my homie John from college. Just a great time. And I do have a suspicion that I may have got sick from Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con at the Javits Center, because I was walking around just so focused on TikTok content and YouTube, and I don't know. Just to say, I will be wearing a mask a lot. So I kind of chilled out for a while. It was almost like a mini gap. But I know with this next episode, I was powering through, and I was like, I haven't did a pod in like 3 weeks, and I want to get it out the way. But so the third to last episode I did, well, fourth if we count this one, organized retail crime creates a domino effect. That episode was talking about crime at major retailers, smash and grabs all over the United States, how there's protective barriers at your favorite stores just to grab essentials. Years ago, it was not like this. In certain places like CVS and Walmart, you see barren shelves. There's profit loss. There's changes in there's store closures. There's changes in how companies stock the shelves. They may stick to generic brands versus name value brands that will sell in a secondary market or in a like a swap meet type of situation. That was a good episode. The third to last episode, so about that viral first date list. that list that circulated about, which was about 20 or so items about places where a woman does not want a man to go take them on a first date. It partly spawned off of the lady who went viral because she was upset about going to Cheesecake Factory. And that was a good episode. My whole stance with that is if a guy is paying for it, he at least has autonomy or at least a majority to be able to decide where that first date is occurring. And I'm talking about an activity or a meetup like a coffee shop or a sit down dinner. There were some things on that list that were valid. Of course, you're not meeting up somebody for a road trip on the first day, and you're not necessarily not going over to someone's house on the first day unless it's like a one night stand situation and y'all both know what's up. But that was an interesting list. I criticized the list for its just redundancy. I could have made that list a little cleaner, neater. I don't know. And then the second to last episode, really the main episode, there's nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5 job. I talked about how 9-to-5 jobs is again, it's steady income. It's important income. 9-to-5 jobs operate in various shifts. It does not have to. The default model is the desk job, but it could be a shift. 11 to 7, 10 to 6 shift job. And steady money is steady money. There's no arguing or debating that. 9-to-5 job doesn't look attractive to some women. They may brown nose a guy who works a 9-to-5 job, and it's sad, just a sad state of affairs we live in. So those were all the episodes. I invite you to be kind and rewind. And I am looking at the timer, and it's pretty much about the standard usual that I went through. It's hard doing a 10-minute thing, you know? I mean, it's like my boy Ed makes it so easy with like his morning walks. Just says like a 10-minute thing and goes on. But hey, I don't know. I'm talking, I'm sharing. It's cool. It's all good. But again, be kind, rewind. Those were all the episodes I did in 2023. In 2024, I've got some things down the pike. Definitely. I may touch again on student loans, right? I may do another piece on no strings when you retire. I did a part 1 this year. You know, I'll likely do a part 2. There is one coming up soon that I'm working on. I'm calling it the 80-20 effect. And of course, you know, Lord willing, when I go to Ghana, I hope to film a lot of content, TikTok, YouTube, and a lot of podcast content there. So I want to be clean and safe, and the clock is running now, and I've invested so much into that trip. So again, I just thank Spotify for being able to allow me the opportunity to record in 2023 and to be able to ship out to all the partners. Peace and blessings to all of you, to my family and coworkers and everyone. Just thank you to everyone who's been listening, rocking with me, continuing to hang in there with me, and listen whenever you can. I'm at the gym, at work, in the car, wherever you can listen. That's all I got for this one. Again, if you're new here, welcome, and I hopefully I can see you in passing and engage in better conversation about finance and what my whole mantra about no strings is about, and anything else you want to talk about. So again, I'm just grinding. I enjoy doing it and pumping out these episodes, and just being able to do an episode like this to recap on the fruits of my labor that I've done throughout this entire year as this year comes to a close. So as I end, I bid you adieu. Merry Christmas. This is being recorded before Christmas. So if you listen after Christmas, hope you had a Merry Christmas. Hope you have a good New Year. If you're listening after New Year's, Happy New Year's. Welcome to 2024. That's all I got for No Strings Podcast with Rail Simon. I will holler at you later.